Hey everybody, it's your girl, Dr. Letitia, and I am back with another episode of my web series, Coffee and Conversations. I am so excited about the guest that I have here today. She is so remarkable, so dynamic. I even stalked her on Instagram to get her to be a guest on the show. So I cannot wait for you to be just as excited about getting to know who she is and learning about her journey and her story as I was. Let me now read her bio. Join me in welcoming Justice Shannon Frison. Justice Shannon Frison was appointed to the Massachusetts Superior Court in March of 2013 at age 42. She took that seat after serving for more than 3 years on the Boston Municipal Court and from 2009 to 2013, beginning her tenure on the bench at just 39 years old. She is a jurist, a major of Marines, and a mentor to new trial lawyers. Before appointment, Justice Frison practiced locally and abroad as owner of Frison Law Firm PC. Her practice focused on blue-collar criminal law and military justice. She tried several high-profile murder, rape, and conspiracy cases in the Boston area and in the military courts of both North Carolina, Pensacola, Florida, and abroad in Okinawa, Japan. Her final case before taking the bench was a tragic and complex quadruple murder that occurred in Dorchester and was tried in Suffolk Superior Court. In that matter, she defended the man accused of all four murders of four young men in a basement music studio. The trial lasted over a month and included more than 60 witnesses. Justice Frison spent nearly 7 years as a litigation associate at the former white-collar defense firm Dwyer and Calora, LLP, in Boston, prior to opening her own firm. She earned her bachelor's degree in government from Harvard and Radcliffe Colleges in 1992 and her Juris Doctor from Georgetown University Law Center in 1995. Justice Frison was admitted to the Massachusetts Bar in 1995 and began her career as an assistant district attorney with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, where she worked out of the Quincy District Court. Justice Frison holds the rank of major. Did you guys hear that? The rank of major in the United States Marine Corps and is a Marine Corps judge advocate. She completed officer candidate school and accepted her commission in the United States Marine Corps in 1994. She also completed the basic school and the Naval Justice School in 1997. From 1997 to 2000, she was the prosecutor aboard Marine Corps Air Station New River in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Since the beginning of the hostilities in Afghanistan and Iraq, Justice Frison has been mobilized to active duty twice in support of the global war on terror in both legal and non-legal capacities. Her duties have taken her to the G5 War Plans branch of the Marine Forces Pacific in Hawaii, as well as the Keystone Judicial Circuit in Japan. In addition to serving the country and practicing law, she has served as a Guberman Teaching Fellow at Brandeis University for 3 years teaching Introduction to Law, as well as appearing as guest lecturer at Brandeis on military justice and military tribunals. Justice Frison was also recently a member of the Boston Bar Association's task force to prevent wrongful convictions and Harvard Law School's trial advocacy workshop. She currently serves as the president of the Massachusetts Black Judges Conference. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to the Honorable Justice Shannon Frison. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on our show today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I mean, just reading everything that you have accomplished at your young age, it just overwhelms me with emotion. You are a most excellent woman. Please tell us about your story.
Well, I don't know where you want me to start.
I want you
Um,
to start with what gave you the courage to face the Marines. What gave you the courage to face law school and accomplish all you have accomplished?
well, I think when I was in law school and beginning my career with the Marine Corps, the point really was to serve the country as well as other people. So while I was in law school, I decided I wanted to have a second career alongside law.
Of course,
And
because law wasn't enough, right? Like
well,
you weren't busy enough with what you were doing.
during my first year of law school, I said, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer unless something goes terribly wrong. So with that, uh, you know, what else is there, and what else sort of is pulling me to do? And I am a believer that people should function at their highest capacity possible. And so when I found out about the Judge Advocate program in the Marine Corps, it just seemed like a perfect fit. And I went off and started that process. So it was the Marine Corps in particular that drew me in, because it's so difficult. They're the most feared branch, I would
Yes,
say,
absolutely.
the
You guys
most stressful
don't play.
branch. So I wanted all of that. I wanted all of that.
Wow, where do you feel the drive to want the challenge came from? Because I think that so many young people don't have they're not tuned into their inner voice to even be able to say to themselves, I want to serve. I know what I want to accomplish, and I'm okay with it being difficult, right? Because right now, I feel like with social media, so many young people want to be where you are or where I am today. They want to graduate with an undergraduate degree and be at this level, job number one. So, what do you think gave you the grit and the fortitude to really walk things out the way you have?
Well, I think it really started in grammar school for me. I'm from Chicago. Um, I grew up in a single parent household with my mom, my sister, and in a relatively poor neighborhood that was all Black. And, as I grew up in Chicago and uh, visiting other places like Mississippi, where my family is, I really gained an appreciation for how difficult
Yes.
things are for people of color, and to some extent, how far behind we were in terms of um, economics,
Yes.
building futures for
Yes.
our families. And I didn't want to be in that. I didn't want to be stuck. I wanted to have the world open to me. So I tried to do all the things that um, were all the things that are provided. So
Yes.
all of the academic programs that I could do, all of the extracurricular programs that I could do, sports, everything, you name it, and try to become as well rounded as I could, and experience all that the school system had to offer,
Mhm.
uh, and um, was successful enough to make my way to Harvard from that school in Chicago, and
Stop,
that
Judge.
really.
Stop for 1 second. Hearing this again overwhelms me with emotion because I know the tenacity that it took to get you from a single parent household in Chicago to Harvard.
It's a big move. And even at my school, there just weren't many people applying to Ivy League colleges.
Mhm.
It, there were a couple, and
Yes.
and that was it.
Yes.
And it really wasn't something that the kids in my neighborhood thought was possible. Even while I was at Harvard, I came back to Chicago several times as part of a program to recruit minority students, and I would come back as a Harvard student and go to high schools, and people and students would say, "Oh my God, I didn't know there were Black people at Harvard,"
Mm-hmm.
and that was something, going from Chicago to Boston, an all Black neighborhood, all Black
Yes.
school, to Harvard and Cambridge and Massachusetts, which is largely white,
Yes.
was a real eye opener
Mm-hmm.
for me, just as a person living in the United States, as to the differences that there are between regions, between
Yes.
schools, um, the way people live, and
Yes.
um, just the entire environment was different, and
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to expand, on sort of what I should be doing and could be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I always counsel young people to, leave your hometown at
Yes.
some point. Go and
Mm-hmm.
experience the world in other cities, other countries, wherever you can go.
Yes. Let's talk about your time in other countries. You served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Let me first say thank you for your service. Thank you for having the courage to defend us all.
And let me thank you. Let me just make one correction. I did
Sure.
not serve in Iraq and Afghanistan,
Okay.
although I did serve in support of the global war on terror.
Okay.
So that is largely associated with those countries.
Absolute. I would say
Um,
so. Absolutely.
but my time abroad was in Okinawa, and the rest of my time in support of that global war was here in Quantico, where the Marine Corps are based.
Wow. How do you balance your life as a judge, as a professor, with the Marines, with your family? How do you bring that all together?
It can be challenging. It's very challenging. The environments are very different.
Yes.
Almost any environment is different than the Marine Corps base or station,
Uh-huh.
and almost any environment is different than a court as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
So there are rules and mores and ways of behaving and work that's very different in each setting. So that's part of what I like about having had more than one uh, aspect to my career. It certainly never gets boring,
I'm
but
sure.
yes, but I do have a great network of family and friends that I'm in constant contact with, and that sort of help me stay sane and grounded.
Perfect. Let's switch gears for a second. You said earlier that you entered the Marine Corps because you wanted to serve your country. And when I think about what has happened with the pandemic that occurred last March and what we've all been just slowly starting to open back up to, and all that has been going on in our country politically, all of the Black Lives Matter protests and all the activism. What was your position when all of this was going on? Because I'm sure there had to be some conflict. What was that like for you?
It was difficult because
Hmm.
as judges, we can't really, we're not allowed to speak out on issues, current
Yes.
cases, things that are political in nature more so.
Yes.
Certainly, I can do continuing legal education and teach a lot of things and discuss a lot of legal topics, but to talk about sort of current day events,
You can't.
it's sort of shunned
Yes.
in the on the bench and
Yes.
from this perspective. So it was very difficult for me because I am someone who has always, way before it was fashionable, spoken out about race and bias, and race and bias within this system that I work
Yes.
in.
Yes.
And that, some people love that. Some people think I should never be doing that. So
Really?
there are a lot of different opinions, because I am a judge. And I always try to tell people judges are human beings first.
Yes.
They're just like police officers, Marines, teachers, doctors. Everyone is a human being
That's right.
first.
That's right.
And I think that's one thing, at least, that the pandemic has sort of honed in on, that everyone's a human being,
That's right.
everyone is susceptible to the ailments and viruses of the world, and the despair that it causes when we lose people
That's right.
to that type of thing. Everyone is subject to that. And in a strange way, I think some weird confluence between the lockdown that people were under in
Mm,
their various states and the uh, killing of George Floyd were, it almost felt like all eyes finally were on this event,
yes.
um, and this type of happening that some people have been talking about over and over and over,
Yes.
and only getting through to a certain extent. And it seemed like almost because we were all locked down and resigned to watch television,
Yes.
um, that it really sort of became a part of the national conscience,
Yes.
when that occurred, and we all sort of unfortunately watched it
Hmm.
together. So it
Hmm.
was a very strange combination, but um, I think that the aftermath of it is long overdue, long overdue. The effort that people are putting now into understanding bias and how it affects
Yes.
Black people and Brown people every day,
Yes.
all day, no
And
matter
every
how
walk of
far or
life.
low you are in the hierarchy of things.
Yes.
It's finally, I think, sinking in what that
Yes.
means and what it looks like, what it
Yes.
looks like.
Yes.
And I think the effort people are putting in, whether it's agencies, companies, courts, everyone is looking at introspectively to whatever it is that they contribute to the world and how we can do better, with regard to race and bias in that realm. That work is long overdue, and I'm happy to see it.
Yes. You're talking to a social justice advocate. So during this time, I was blessed to be in the position to lead 6 different protests in the North. East, yes, between New Jersey and New York. And I actually was able to have the town I live in have the police department taken over by our county prosecutor's office because of
Wow.
their racist practices of stopping Black and Brown people at highly disproportionate rates. It was just unbelievable. And so, we have really seen that victory. I guess my question for you is, how do we take some of those victories and apply them to the legal system where so many Black men specifically and Black women specifically are disproportionately sentenced, convicted, etc.? How do we continue the fight there? Because for me, and where I sit as a professor and a social justice advocate and a psychotherapist, it's like our communities, we went from slavery to sharecropping to the prison industrial complexes. That is literally what the progression feels like. Okay, now this is not a history lesson, everybody. So we know we had some stops and starts in between, but it really seems like that is how things have progressed. So, how do we now take this energy and apply it to the legal system?
That is a great question, and I hope that people actually start challenging the legal system more.
Yes.
Um, there are, you know, there are some states, I think, that, like Massachusetts, where I am, that have felt like we are more liberal, more progressive.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
sometimes because of that, we're sort of resting on our laurels when it
Yes.
comes to some of these issues and just sort of uh, riding off of reputation alone and off of other things that we may get right. Um, but we have been tempered here by some more current analysis that has gone on with regard to Massachusetts courts that show that we still do sentence Black and Brown people to longer
Yes.
sentences. We
Yes.
still do impose higher bails on Black and Brown people right here in Massachusetts. So we no longer get to say, oh, that happens down in Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia and the southern states. We don't act like that up here.
That's right.
Well, actually, we do.
We do.
And you can't get around the numbers. And the numbers are what they are, and they show the truth in the
That's right.
disparities.
That's
And
right.
so I think that what lawyers here are doing and doing more of is challenging those types of interactions between police and citizens, challenging um, the the comparative sentencing and bail impositions that we do. And that is directly within the system that can happen. And I've seen begin to happen in which case by case, people are providing this information about the disparities to the court in a particular case
Okay.
and
That's awesome.
sort of reminding the judges who are now having to deal with and look at really what they do more carefully,
Yes.
reminding them that this may be a situation in which you consider um, comparing what you normally do,
Okay.
comparing what you might do if the person were a different race or a
That's
different
right.
gender, um, and really sort of doing a gut check for
Mhm.
yourself. And I think that is something that is going to happen case by case, judge by judge, and
Okay.
defendant and lawyer by lawyer. But it's also happening by the communities that we serve, demanding more transparency and conversations between the court and the community. I know in Massachusetts, we're starting to do that where judges are making themselves available for these Zoom type conversations or in
Wow.
person when we were and will be again doing that,
Yes.
in which we invite members of the community to ask questions that have to do with race and bias
Oh,
and how we
wow.
do our business. And it certainly puts us on the spot, but in a good way, because
Yes.
those are the conversations that we need to have. If the communities we serve don't think we're serving them fairly, then what are
Yes.
we doing?
What is this all for?
Right.
Exactly.
The
Exactly. I love
buildings
that.
that I work in are all about fairness and equality and justice.
Yes.
And if in doing our work day to day, we're not um, actually being an example of those values,
Yes.
then really, what are we doing there? And so
Absolutely.
that's those are the things I think that individual defendants and lawyers can do, and communities,
Okay.
because all of these courts sit in some community.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And I think what you said so eloquently is as the community, we have to hold all of these institutions, accountable for these behaviors. And I think that what happened during the pandemic was the accountability started. Now we can no longer look away. We can no longer lie to ourselves and say, racism is a thing of the past. The very fabric and foundation of our country is built on racist ideology. And we have to know that. We have to be able to say that out loud and accept that as truth in order to dismantle it. And so my hope in bringing you on was to get you to say exactly what you just said. So I am like thrilled because I wanted people to hear it from a person that has your viewpoint. you have such a unique viewpoint. You know, I don't know statistically right now how many Black female judges there are in America, but I'm going to tell you, I will take a gander to say there aren't many. All right. It's not 50%, right? So it is a very small percentage. So you are like something of a unicorn with how you are in the world, but also your role as a judge in Massachusetts, right? Which, you know, has a bit of a history in our nation with
Mhm.
race related issues, specifically Boston, right?
Yes.
And all
Yes.
of that. What are your thoughts on that?
That's true. It feels like that sometimes, the unicorn effect, um, but it is, just as I have been in the Marine Corps for, you know, 27 or so years at this point. Um, th- my service to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I take just as seriously, and so it is. Sometimes, it's always a labor of love, and trying to do the right thing by the people who live in this Commonwealth. And so, at each turn, whether I'm the only Black judge in the room, or the building, or the county, um, it is something that I freely give to the people. When I do have people of color before me, litigants, lawyers,
Yes.
staff,
Yes.
um, we are sometimes amazed at each other.
Yes.
You may be sitting there, oh my goodness, there's someone that looks like me on the
Yes.
bench. And I may be going, oh my goodness, there's someone who looks like me that's arguing this motion, or
Yes.
doing this
Yes.
trial, and
Yes.
I'm proud of that.
Yes.
And no
Yes.
matter how few of us there are,
That's right.
I'm proud of everyone involved in making justice happen in Massachusetts. So I would like there to be more judges of color, and that's something I'm always working on. So if you're
Yes.
out there and you're a lawyer and you're thinking about coming onto the bench, please do. And please find and reach out to me if you would like to talk about how that happens, particularly here, and would like any help with that. So that's a big part of it, in what we do, is trying to reach back. We always say reaching back or reaching down. I don't really think of it that way, because I haven't
Uh-huh.
gone anywhere. I'm not
That's
reaching
right.
back.
That's right.
I'm still here with
Still, yeah,
everyone, and
that's
I'm
right.
not reaching down,
That's right.
because these are simply people who are probably younger than me. They're not further down than me
That's
in
right.
any way. But
That's
I
right.
like to reach in, I'll say, to the
Yes.
community, and
Yes.
promote people who want to be lawyers, students
Yes.
who want to be lawyers, lawyers who
Yes.
want to be judges, judges who want to be whatever else,
Yes.
and really support people who, are people of color and are doing great things. And, I feel that you are selfish if you're not reaching
Yes.
out
Yes.
and doing that.
And I will say, as I said at the beginning of the show, she absolutely checks her DMs directly because she responded to me. Okay. So she will respond to you if you reach out to her. I want to thank you just again for your time, for your patience, but most importantly, for your service to all of us and all the ways you serve us. I want you to know that I honor you, one woman to another, one Black woman to another, one wife to another, one person to another. Thank you. And I honor what you do. And I want you to continue it. Please, 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 we need you. The community needs you. Please continue to raise your voice. I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. We will be back with a new episode next week. Stay tuned. Thank you guys so much. And remember, stay in peace, not in pieces.